Hey everybody, so this is the Generate Lab Cribs edition. So we're kind of a different kind of lab than what some of the other videos are going to see. So we are primarily in the field. We do not spend a lot of time in here, which you'll be able to see by the fact that a lot of it is more of a storage area. But it'll be exciting to kind of walk around and see some of the big stuff in our lab. So we do all sorts of stuff in this lab. We are generally landscape ecologists, but we have people studying soils and nitrogen emissions and carbon emissions, and a whole nother group studying heat in cities and how plants are reducing that. So we have a big range of stuff in here. We spend a lot of time in the desert, so we have no shortage of water coolers. And then if we look in our fridges, so we won't have like DNA in these fridges. We have a whole bunch of leaves and soil extracts. Those are all my soil extracts from the desert, along with a couple other ones. See, so many leaves that won't even fell out. No shortage of soil that we're working with here. And so we use this soil to kind of figure out how much nitrogen is in it, what types of nitrogen, how that changes over time, and how it changes with nitrogen deposition. So kind of seeing like what cars are doing and how they're affecting the whole system beyond just the air and the smog we can see. And so I've got my Botany mask on, but we have a whole bunch of masks and stuff in here. The department did a really good job of kind of setting us up, keeping us really safe, and kind of staggering how much time we're in here. In more molecular labs, they staggered a lot more. We do a lot less lab work, so it's pretty chill to come in here whenever. Going over here, we do have a small wet lab space. You can see our pile of lab coats, and you can see I have my Falcon tubes all ready for a whole bunch more soil extractions to do. No shortage of soil collections after this dry summer. So we have this fancy leaf area machine, all sorts of scales. We have our fume hood, of course. No lab would be complete without it. But yeah, lots of, again, soil extractions. That's so much of the work we do. We have another person in the lab is more of a physiologist, and he kind of makes slides of leaves to get at their microscopic characteristics. So we do have a little bit of wet lab work, but you can see a lot of it is just soil samples. No shortage of soil. But if we go into the next room, so we're really lucky we have 2 rooms to put all this stuff. And this is where we really hold a lot of our field supplies. So you can see here behind me, we have whole weather stations. So we have 4 of those out right now in the desert, but they measure wind speed, wind direction, humidity, and we also have ozone monitors in them too. So we get all sorts of details, and those are paired with air sampling of all the nitrogen in the area. So we get a whole bunch of measures of air quality, which is really cool. We have our Lycor machines. We are a big Lycor lab, so they make all sorts of machines to measure. So this measures CO2 emissions from the soil, and you can see it's got its little handle. So it's meant to be very portable and ready for the field and very durable, which is good because we use it out in the desert in the summer. So it needs to be nice and strong for that. The one under it is a multiplexer. And so the way that these machines work is they connect to a chamber. And for years and years and years, you would connect to one chamber, place it over the soil you wanted to measure the emissions from, and then plug it in, measure it for a little bit, move on to the next area, the next. But now these machines have gotten real fancy. And so the multiplexer lets us plug into 8 chambers at once and kind of set it up automatically. So we'll have it running. Each chamber will measure for like 2 or 3 minutes over like 24 hours, 48 hours. And so here's one of the chambers. You can see they're kind of all over the place, but this is a little robotic arm. When it's all set up, this comes up and opens. And when it's closed is when it measures the emissions of the gas. And when it's open, it kind of is just cycling around to other chambers. So it lets us get a really good look at what soil emissions look like in the desert. And since we're running all these machines in the desert, we build, so you can kind of see, here's a wall of insulation. In order to keep all those machines running and cool and safe at like 120 degrees, we build this kind of box of insulation, and it looks very otherworldly, like a UFO has landed. But that's also why we have this little AC unit. So it's awful goofy with a box of insulation and an AC unit just in the middle of the desert with all our machines, but it gets the job done. And here you can see our NOx box. So Very tiny, again, very portable, good for the field. And that measures nitrous oxides from the soil. I also use this to measure nitrous oxides in the air in the city using another lab's mobile van. So I hook it up to kind of the van infrastructure. It brings in air and measures NOx as I'm just driving down the road. So you can get a lot of cool uses out of these. Once you know how to use them, they're pretty quick and easy. And then we have this big guy right here in the box that measures N2O. And so N2O is nitrous oxide. That's probably the most powerful greenhouse gas out there. It's very potent, much more than CO2, even though CO2 kind of gets the lion's share of the attention. And so we measure like CO2, N2O, and NOx coming from the soil in the desert. I measure, and then I also do that in the city, or I'm going to do it in the city very shortly. And then I also measure NOx and NH3 in the air, using another machine that's not in our lab, and then some passive samplers. And so you can see we have like no shortage of crazy things. We have all our soil collars, never enough soil collars. I feel like we're ordering them every day. But yeah, so there's all sorts of crazy stuff in here, computers, just all the setup. You know, we have about, I think 7 or 8 people in our lab, including postdocs. And so we have a lot of people doing a lot of different work. And so we kind of need all this space to hold everybody's things. And that's really it. I mean, it's a pretty messy lab in many ways, but it's got all we need. And yeah, it's pretty fun to come in here in beautiful Bachelor Hall on the UC Riverside campus. Refresh yourself on the 12 Orders of Soil Taxonomy. Refresh yourself on some wildflowers in the desert. If anything, we do love our plants and our soils in the Generette Lab. So thanks for watching. Hope this was fun, and hope you enjoyed seeing some of UCR's great science.